Welcome to the quick. I can't even say my own intro. Welcome to the Quick Stop F1 podcast. My name is Nyasha, and you could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. We appreciate that today. Joining me is one of my favorite F1 content creators. Okay, this guy's big in the game. I saw this guy last year flew out to Miami like one thought. I can't believe it. The channel's growing so much. I can't even keep up with what this guy's doing. And I know I saw on your notifications on YouTube, I saw you tease the little thing with a couple drivers. I'm not even going to say anything, but I saw it. And I was hating, but I love him too much. So I can't hate too much. Welcome to the show. Tomo F1 fame. How you doing?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. When was the last time I was on? It was.
You've not been on,
wasn't it?
Since I think the Mexico Grand Prix in 2021, I believe, which was the famous episode where I think Tandy called Valtteri her stepson.
Yes. I do remember. So that one's lived on, hasn't it? That's lived on as part of the community, kind of. I like it.
Every time we bring him up, it feels like someone has to be hashed out. We labelled him our stepson, and it's just for the rest of his career now, amongst all of his accolades, it's going to be us labelling him his stepson. But look, it's not about me, it's not about you, Thomas, it's about you guys at home. If you are watching this, make sure to smash that like button, give us a subscribe as well. If you're listening on Spotify, give us a 5-star review. You can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, and also, if you want an ad-free stream, there's the Patreon. Tomo, before we get into all of the things that have been happening in F1 this week, how are you finding this season? I guess as a content creator, we had the highs of 21, then maybe the let's say plateau of 22 with what happened, the dominance of Red Bull. A bit more of the same this year, but feels like there's a bit more to talk about. But how are you finding, I guess, the F1 season?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've always been able to find value from any season, because typically the drivers that I've pulled for, like my entire life, have usually been a bit mid, a bit average. Fighting for points is the best you can do, and I think I can find enjoyment in that. Of course, even 2020, lockdown, really like unpredictable podiums. 2020, 2021 sport us in terms of action and drama. And for this time last year, he'd only just kind of gone out of the fight, really. There was still an outside chance, it just takes one big Ferrari upgrade and he's right back up there again. So there was still at least some hope. And I think this is the first season we've really seen a driver from kind of almost day dot really, take ownership of the championship since probably 2019, would you say, with Lewis?
I'd probably say so with Lewis. 2019, I mean, you had that first 3-4 race period maybe where it was like him and Bottas were like, Bottas 3.0, do we know what's going to happen? Yeah, and then Lewis just went to town, didn't he? He had it sewn up early. So yeah, I'd probably say 2019 is probably the last time we had this level.
Yeah, so listen, look, this isn't massively out of the ordinary as an F1 fan. You've kind of got to you take the rough with the smooth in terms of competitiveness for a championship. And look, I think that at the end of the day, I retain faith that the regs will, by next season, I think I'm hopeful it will have closed up somewhat. At the end of the day, is the onus is on, everyone to, you can put the ATR, you can put a budget cap all you like. It's human beings designing racing cars. If Mercedes had made a few different decisions last year and maybe listen to Lewis a bit earlier, then who knows where that that butterfly effect could have taken things, right? I'm just saying, come on. Surely.
You're not wrong. And I think that's the thing. A couple of things, when people are like, we need to change the regulations to peg back Red Bull. As much as I would be up for that, I'm almost like, what do you change now? because they're just so good. I guess maybe the DRS kind of thing, how they've done that, but DRS is linked to like the whole car, and so it's not just like they've got a bigger flap to help them get faster straight line speed. And there's not really one thing on the car that is excellent. The whole package is great, but if you change something, Mercedes has been working towards a new concept. They could change something, and then that could take that whole concept away. And I just think that, you say, I feel like as much as the last 2 years have not been, I would say, fun from a Lewis Hamilton winning all the time perspective for me, I do. Now that they've changed concepts, I do have a bit more faith in that. And then seeing where the way Aston Martin have gone up and and been able to challenge, surely Ferrari must get better. And then the directive that they're going to have less time in the wind tunnel and the designing and so forth with Red Bull. Maybe I'm silly. Maybe I'm hoping against hope, but I do think that we are going to see convergence. And we already maybe did see some convergence at Canada. I don't know. Or do you think that was a false dawn?
It's hard to tell, isn't it? Because Max had a literal dead bird stuck in the front of his car. So who knows how much time that was costing him. Alonso was holding back for a fuel flow issue that wasn't even an issue, so he could have. So who knows how much he was losing? Maybe a tenth, maybe 2 tenths a lap. So I mean, Canada is one of them that it's a bit of a unique circuit as well. It's punishes your low speed performance, which I think hence why Lewis maybe wasn't able to hold on to P2 in the end. But I just again, this is what we have to accept, that because this isn't a spec series, sometimes this is going to happen, and you've got to find kind of joy and excitement and story in the other, in everyone else. It's not just about who's winning at the front. I think there's really compelling narratives throughout F1, and that's what I've always been probably just as much drawn to. Of course, I love a championship fight at the front as much as the next person, of course, but there is more to it for me than that. And I guess that's where I don't know about you, but like I've certainly found that this time last year an equivalent video is probably now doing about 70% of the viewership than it was this time last year. Because I just think that for you to be really invested into F1 to the extent that you're going to come on YouTube to search it out right now, where you do have this really dominant driver car package at the front, then that requires you to be really, really into it and either be, have creators that you're really, really engaged with. But we all have more casual following who dip in and out. And I think those have maybe moved away a little bit at the minute.
Oh, no, 100%. And I think probably us, if we're going to be honest, like probably us, you can see like the spikes when Mercedes haven't done as well. Although to be fair, last season we had pretty solid figures. But this year when Mercedes haven't done as well, like the viewership numbers have gone down, but then when Lewis has done really well, or there's been like a good narrative or story around Lewis, then people are searching for that again, and I guess they know where to come for that. So it has been interesting to see, and I think you're right, finding the joy in narratives elsewhere on the grid. I think that's something that I've quite enjoyed this season, one of which I have to talk to you about. I couldn't get you on the show without talking about Alex Albon. So actually, just randomly, you're probably the biggest, or maybe not the biggest, but you were outwardly Albon, from the beginning. I don't think I saw anyone rep Albon. And this is not a spot on anyone who reps Albon. I just personally hadn't seen anyone before you, especially from a content creator perspective, repping Albon. What is it about Alex Albon that kind of drew you to him to support him in the way that you do?
Yeah, it's funny because my first actual F1 video on my channel was when Albon replaced Gasly at Red Bull. That was my very first video, so middle of 2019. And to be honest, I watched that video back and I talk about Alex. I'm like, I like this kid. Like I've seen him his first half. At that time, I wasn't really following the F2, so I didn't really have too much knowledge of him prior to jumping into F1. And obviously, I've learned that since.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. You know what? I think it's a combination of factors. I think I liked the more I kind of read into him. He's from I think he's from near like Colchester, so it's like I think just Suffolk, but like top of Essex.
Top of
And I'm an
Essex, yeah,
Essex
that's
lad,
what I'm
so it's kind of, you know, there's that. I don't know. I just like, I like his character. I like the way he comes across. I like the way he articulates himself. And you know what? I think back in kind of 2019 and before 2020 started, you know, I really liked him and he was one of my favorites, but I wouldn't have put him ahead of, you know, I really liked Lando. I really liked
Yeah.
Lewis. I really I really liked a lot of drivers and I still got a lot of love for, you know, pretty much all the grid, right? But I think because of the struggle of 2020 and then almost the desperation for him to now come back and the resurgence, that whole character arc, in the
Yeah.
same way, you know, I like Ocon for there's various reasons, right? And I like the way he comes across and articulates himself, but also the fact that he got dropped, I think, unfairly, still found his way back, and now he's, you know, got that race win, he's got these podiums. You know, it's those kind of maybe it's because I'm a West Ham fan. I'm used to pain. I'm used to suffering. But, you know, nothing beats a playoff final victory. And it's almost like, you know, Alex getting back and now doing well. And I think getting the acknowledgement that I think it's easy to knock drivers when they're down, right? And he was down bad in 2020, very bad. So yeah, I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, to be honest, man. There's a lot of things that have come together that have just been like, you know what, this is my guy that I'm going to put most of my stock behind.
No, and I think like for me, I'll be honest, he had a bit of the Red Bull stench on him, so like I couldn't really get into him like too much. And then there was the 2 incidents with Lewis, and I was like, God, like one of them was there. I feel like Brazil was definitely Lewis's fault. I think Austria, it was like that was impatient, but they were both impatient, to be honest.
I actually think the other way around. I
Really?
think Alex was more at fault. He just left the door so open at Brazil. He was kind of asking for it, and I think he was a bit naive. But I think Lewis was bang at fault for Austria. I'm sorry. I'm not having that.
Fair play. That's fine. And look, he got punished for both, if I'm not incorrect, which both led to unexpected podiums for Gasly and Norris.
Indeed.
But I would say, so there was that. But I think since going to Williams, I think what I like is almost, you know, if we're going to use football analogies as well, I like when players get written off and then they go to a club and they find themselves, or, you know, star boys who maybe didn't make it. For example, like Martin Odegaard at Real Madrid, everyone hyped him, didn't work out, comes to Arsenal, and, you know, I love that kid with my whole heart. I think he's incredible. But he's doing really well, he's successful now. And I think with Alex, he's kind of found that home at Williams now, where he's a leader. They've got a team principal who I didn't expect to see James Vowles doing so well at Williams so quickly, to be honest. But he seems to have brought a real sense of direction that hasn't been there before. I mean, but I guess what I wanted to ask, have you seen like a different level of Alex since, I guess, let's say between last year and this year, or is it just that the car is able to give him what he wants? Because, you know, we have seen good results from him last year as well, but maybe it does feel like maybe the team and driver have gone up a level this year.
Yeah, it's really, actually, when you think about it, it's quite difficult to really get a clear rating on it, because so often when we look at drivers, don't we? We look at who they've been teammates alongside.
Yes.
So, you know, when Lewis jumped in at McLaren alongside Fernando was a proven entity, and the fact that Lewis was right up there straight away was like, that's what made that so impressive and immediately, right? We know he's the real deal. You know, Alex came in half season alongside Daniel Kvyat, was pretty much there, slightly fewer points, but performance-wise pretty much there. You know, did a really good job in 2019 in the Red Bull. You know, he was consistently up there. I mean, that overtake on Vettel at Interlagos will...
it's crazy.
I'll never forget that, man. I'll never forget that. That's when it peaked for me. And then obviously gets slapped by Verstappen, who's, you know, since slapped, you know, Gasly and Perez as well. So that's the difficult one to get a measure on. Then he goes into the Williams alongside Latifi, who was trash, and George smashed him. Alex equally smashed him, but then different generation of cars. And then Logan, like Logan's a rookie, so it's difficult to get a real measure. But I am seeing a kind of confidence. I'm seeing a yeah. I do actually, in part, I think in the long run, he will look back on those troublesome times at Red Bull.
Yeah.
With like you learn most from the adversity in life, don't you? And I think
Yeah.
he's had a whole career's worth of adversity, and he's only had 3.5 years experience in F1 in terms of race seat time, which is
Yeah.
less than you'd think,
True.
right? Because he had the year off.
Exactly. And for me, it's one of those where I really do. Yeah, I really do agree with that. In that, Lewis says all the time in terms of, it's the bad times that have taught me the most. And I do think, there was obviously you did a video that came out today, and we'll put a link below about all of this. So sorry to just steal all the content you probably said on
Thank you
there,
for that.
but you, I think I saw on Twitter someone say, and I'll try and find the tweet, but it was like, and I guess I'll put this to you: is Alex Albon better off being the leader in a lower team and trying to bring that team close to the front? How realistic is it, that Williams can get close to the front or whatever, but maybe fighting for podiums one day? Or going to somewhere like Red Bull, let's say if they want to take him back or do take him back, but he's always going to be second driver to Verstappen. And, I guess he would always back your talent in those situations. Maybe he thinks he's quicker than Verstappen, but sorry, I guess within that team environment, he'll never really be number one driver there.
Yeah, I mean, again, I try not to. I consider Alex's ability on a par around where I consider Pierre. I think them two. I see them quite equally in terms of ability wise. Now, obviously, I'm drawing on the last few years. Well, that's 3.5 years plus a year out of racing and a lot is different machinery. So it's impossible to say for sure, right? But yeah, I do think that Vowles gives me confidence the way he articulates himself. He's not had long there and he's instilled a lot of confidence already, which I think is super important from the team personnel, right? They talk about
Yeah.
human confidence and getting behind the team and why it's so important to be like a positive, like, yeah, positive noise in your team. And because all the staff, all the personnel look at the drivers. So I do think, he's the perfect driver for Williams right now, and I think they're the perfect team for him. And I do think, at least I think he needs to give it till the end of next season there to return the loyalty that they've shown him, because they, there was no obligation to pick him, and it was certainly a risk to take him on. He's paid them back for sure, right? And I had no doubts he was going to do brilliant, like when he went back to Williams, because I'm invested and I pay more attention to Alex, I suppose. I think because that's it, isn't it? It's like when you got a driver that you support, right? You pay more attention to what goes on, both like consciously and subconsciously. And I just felt always felt confident that he was the driver over, say, De Vries, because De Vries was getting touted for that seat as well. And I think right now, like, Alex is a country mile ahead of De Vries.
Man, it's quite as much as we, obviously we'll always highlight it, we'll make videos about it. It is quite sad watching someone struggle in F1 because it's very brutal. Like there's no hiding place, and when it rains, it pours. Kind of like with Alex, right? When it wasn't going his way, and it really did feel like the pressure of the world is on your shoulders, right? And then I think that's the case with Nick, but conversely with Alex, the good form just keeps going and going, and he's getting these results. And I think Canada was just reward really for you look at the tire strategy he had to employ. You look at the defensive work he had to do on those tires. The performance in Q2 in the rain. It really was. I think one of those weekends where maybe some more of the casual people would have been like, what, this guy's got a real talent.
Yeah, and look, it's a different challenge when you're fighting for P7 in a car that, again, it suited the characteristics of Canada for sure. It helped rain and, rain coming and him putting the slicks on and getting into Q3, those kind of, it is a different type of challenge in that midfield. And the fact that he's had his time in what was theoretically a quick car. in 2020. But I mean, even, going from 20, Max was way more comfortable in the 21 Red Bull than he was in the 20 Red Bull. That was a difficult, edgy car to drive, right? So I just think that, but what actually, I wanted to ask you, because, where do you consider, Alex, amongst when you look at all these drivers, and you look at, even like we were saying, like Norris and Ocon and Gasly, and where do you, like Bottas, where do you consider Alex amongst those names? Because it is, I think objectively is really difficult to have a strong idea.
It is, isn't it? Look, if I'm going to be honest, I think there's like, let's say like 3 to 5, maybe 4 or 5 tiers, I would say, of drivers, right? I mean, I guess if you're doing them in like percentiles, but I think at the moment, Lewis, Alonso and Max are in their own kind of league.
Agreed.
I think Charles with confidence would be in that 3, but I just don't think the confidence is there. I don't think the team is there. And
Agreed.
I feel a bit sorry for him. But also he has himself to blame for some of the errors that he's done. So I would put Lando and Charles in like the just below world class tier, world champion tier, let's say. George, and then Alex. I think Alex is in that group with, like you say, Pierre, Ocon, Sainz. That group, I think. But I think he is... He's up there in that group. I struggle with that group, though. That can change from... It depends on how you look at it, right? Like, if you're looking at race wins, then, Alex is the only one without a race win. But then if you're looking at, I would say, maybe consistency of performances, Alex has got a really good level of consistency now. Lack of unforced errors. I would say Alex, despite Canada and what was it? Did he spin in? Was it a spin in Canada? No, he just didn't get out on the right tires, did he? Sorry.
Well, he put it in the wall in Australia, didn't he?
In Australia, that was
from a really good position as well, which was gutting.
Yeah, I can imagine. So I would say between him and Ocon, I would say are for top of that list. I think Sainz has talent. I just sometimes there's so many unforced errors. Sometimes I just don't understand. And then with Gasly, I think he's still getting used to the Alpine. So that's a long answer of saying I think he's in the top. I think he's in the top. I think
that puts him in the 10. Top half. That puts him in the top half.
I think he's in the top 10, and I think depending on how you look at it, I would put him between 7th and 10th, depending on how you would evalue it. What would you say?
This is what I think as well. I just think the standard of F1 drivers now is the highest it's ever been, because there's so much more. Like, it's still not a meritocracy, far from it. But I think more than ever, I think motorsport is as accessible as it has ever been. It's still not very accessible by any stretch, right? But it is more so. Things are moving in the direction. I know that when Esteban was having a chat with Matt and Tom, and he was saying, he thinks the whole field's within a couple of tenths, which, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a few tenths, like quick lap, maybe 2, probably more like 3 for me. But I do think that, we don't have apps now that Latifi's gone. We don't have these absolute bums like stinking up the place anymore, like we always have done.
No, not at all. Which makes the De Vries situation a bit sad, because you wouldn't expect it for someone of that, I guess, that caliber. But no, for sure, I think I think the field is really close, and that's what we hope. If there's continued convergence of cars, then we're going to have some incredible racing. But look, I want to talk to you about some business stuff that's happened in the world of F1, and we'll do that after these messages from our sponsors. Right. If you're watching this far, make sure to give us a like, subscribe, all of them things there. Tomo, some news come out today about the Alpine investors buying into the Alpine F1 team. And obviously the big headlines amongst that is that Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElheny, the duo who obviously took over Wrexham and have taken them into the National Football League, and obviously got the show on Disney Plus, which is extremely popular, have taken over as part of a consortium for 24% of Alpine, which values Alpine. I had the figures here.
It's 900 million, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. You're much more professional than me. I guess. What are your thoughts on? I guess on that it's made big news today. I guess, and it must help Alpine. I guess that's going to be extra investment that they're going to have. They've got big ambitions. So I guess thoughts on takeover, and I guess the fact that you've got Ryan and Rob involved in that, which will bring a lot more, I guess, media attention to Alpine if they decide to do the same thing that they've done with Wrexham.
Yeah, because I think the most clear and obvious difference is they fully bought out Wrexham, so they fully took on that role. This is part of a broader. I mean, some of the other investment companies, they're linked to what is it? I think Liverpool.
We have them here actually. You've got Ultra Capital and Redbird Capital Partners, who own the third largest stake in Fenway Sports Group, who own Liverpool, the Boston Red Sox baseball team, and Milan and Toulouse.
Yeah, so they've got, there's big money. These are big money people coming in. I can't remember how much they bought Wrexham for, but it wasn't. This is a small part of a much bigger thing where they'll have less direct kind of tie and responsibility to it. I think Alpine have talked quite recently about wanting a kind of cash injection. I think it's like $218 million. I think it is. So that's obviously that's money that can go towards facilities, because Enstone's quite restricted, where it's kind of in the. I don't know if I've driven through Enstone, not like just the village, and it is literally like a random. And I was like, why do I recognise the name of this village? This random village we're driving through. I was like, fuck, it's Enstone. And so it's like it's limited in that way. So I think that money will obviously help. But it feels like, so I've read the press releases about kind of Alpine, because they've still only got one car, which I think is fucking ridiculous. Like, how are you still only selling one car if you're going to put them in F1? You sell one fucking car. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, they're going to have like 7, I think, by the end of, I think that's 2030. So I guess being able to build up you see what they did, what they've done with Wrexham. They can still do something along those lines. It makes sense that you've got these people who've got a tried and tested method of bringing eyeballs to a sport adventure, particularly with obviously Ryan and Rob. So, I mean, look, I think it makes sense. And I think you look at the value it's put on Alpine at 900 million, and that kind of also makes sense. We're getting close to $1 billion now. If the teams do rise that entry barrier to 600 million they're talking about, then that adds 400 million onto the price tag of every team, right? Surely.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing, right? They're saying that the 200 mil that they signed for the Concord agreement for new teams is super outdated now. Like, the teams are worth so much, and for you to be a new team to come in, you're going to have to bring that level of worth to the sport. I think what's interesting about it for me is that Formula One is starting to be seen as profitable, not just on the racetrack, but as a business, as an entity, and socially. And I think that's something like we always kind of would talk about, is that this space is so new relatively to football, relatively to maybe other American sports like NBA and NFL. So I think what's interesting is that people are looking at teams and like, we're going to put money in, and we're going to be expecting to receive quite a hefty investment back. And I think that just puts the sport in quite an exciting place to know that things continue as they are. We're only really at the beginning of what what could
Yeah.
be an incredibly massive sport. What should be a massive sport? It's crazy that it's not big already.
Well, even the money that Liberty paid, I can't remember off the top of my head what they paid for F1, but I know it's valued significantly higher
Yeah.
now. I guess the one thing is that value actually sustainable value? You see all these companies like Uber has never turned a
Yeah.
profit and they're valued this much, but they've never made any money. It's like they're waiting on, and that's, I guess, maybe a slight concern. Are these inflated figures? You got a lot of this with esports teams. Actually, a lot of money went into
Yeah.
esports over lockdown,
Yeah.
and now all of a sudden they're all like phases up the Swanee. Like all of them are,
Yeah.
but unless they're shifting a lot of merch, they're fucked. So that maybe makes me a bit concerned that these inflated figures, is that based on reality? Like, can they shift the merch? Can they get the prize money? Can they get the sponsorship to actually back that up? I guess we'll see.
Well, we'll see. I do think there's like, sorry, I'm seeing so many conflicting reports on how much these guys paid. So, I'm reading something that said 301 million of its own cash to buy Formula One auto racing in January, but then I'm seeing that they got the keys to the series with 4.6 billion from. Oh, so maybe that was before 2017. I mean, then there's an 8 billion deal. I mean, I just honestly. All right, they paid 4.84 for 18.7% stake before completing the remainder of the deal. So yeah, it's I think, like I say, it's all on these projections of the social capital, right? Formula One struck gold with Drive to Survive. It was a happy accident. They couldn't get Red Bull, so they couldn't get Mercedes and Ferrari to join. So they focused on the lower teams and basically made it a reality series. That turned into the most like incredible things for them, and I just think that it's one of those things where I do think there's going to be a saturation point with the success of drive. Look, every other sport has done that now. Like every other sport has got a series.
The thing is, we've got the TV series coming out, don't we? We've got the movie as well that Lewis is working on. And now with this, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw like a behind the scenes Alpine kind of Welcome to Wrexham-esque series, right? So I feel like Drive to Survive has been the conduit, but in the same way that with football, you get the All or Nothing series, and there's so many different like documentaries that focus on the stories of these clubs behind closed doors. I think we're going to start to see that now with F1, and there's still a lot more scope because I mean, teams do their own social media, but we're not seeing a properly well produced, again, Welcome to Wrexham-esque series for a team. We've not really seen that be done yet, and I think there is certainly going to be the audience for that as much as there is, because I think people just we see like 1% of what actually happens. We don't see the day in the factory. We don't get that connection, that understanding. So I think there's so many stories that can be told that aren't still aren't being told. So I think there is the scope for it. It's just I think the sport also, it is in a difficult position now where 2021 set a standard for a lot of people in terms of the excitement and the thrill and the action and the drama, right? And that is going to keep a lot of these casual people hooked. And now that this has become a bit more of a it's not an unusual F1 season to have one car at the front dominating. That's not unusual at all, but it will be unusual to a lot of new fans who have come in. So if you can't give them what you've almost promised them with 2021 and even the start of 22, then it becomes a bit difficult, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, for sure. And Chris just wanted to remind us as well, there's a Lewis documentary coming out, which I'll be seated for. And obviously, if they want to give us tickets for the premiere of either film, then we're here and we're not doing anything.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Wink, wink, nudge. So yeah, I think. Do you see an issue? I guess the thing is, they're selling out pretty much every race, right? Mm-hmm. The Miami ticket sales, they seem to have said they had even more people than last year, although it kind of felt from the ticket offers that were going around and some of the footage, especially for the
A
practice sessions.
lot of price gougers got burnt bad at Miami. That's what I heard.
Yeah, I can
And there were a lot when I
imagine.
went last year. Even last year when I went, the first one, like I think there were a lot of gougers. I think they did all right because it was the first one, but I think this
Yeah,
second one, I think a lot of gougers bought a lot of tickets expecting people to be prepared to pay and not to take an L on the tickets.
well, yeah, it'd have to. And I think the fact that we've, as I've always said this, I think the fact that they've got Vegas. It's like, do I pay that much to go to Miami, or do I just pay a bit more and I get to go to Las Vegas and, it's not in the blistering fucking sun. It's at night. It's a Saturday night, first Vegas race, and I'm in Vegas. It's quite an easy choice. But do you ever see an issue with Formula One? The prices are not going down for races. And the prices are getting to a point, or probably have been getting to a point now where it's alienating at some races. They're still cheaper races. If you look at Hungary, I think Barcelona is still quite cheap. Monza, but then, issues around Monza with security and getting in and, facilities. But they're still cheaper. But on the whole, for example, let's say the British Grand Prix is, with the dynamic pricing and everything, is, super expensive. I guess, is there a bubble in that, or do you just see those prices going up and up and up and up, and F1 just kind of being able to milk it for as much as it's worth?
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because again, this applies to any sport, and they know, if they know they're going to sell out and they can charge a little bit more, then they will.
Yeah.
Of course they will. And I think I'd love to be able to keep at least Saturday like cheaper, because it's a weekend. Obviously Friday, yes, but then people will work, and I know people work weekends, of course. But I think the sport it owes itself to not price out the general public because of the knock-on effect. Like, think how many fewer youngsters are going to be able to go to a Grand Prix because like your parents and then your brothers and sisters. Like, there's say it's 5-6 of you going. Like, that's over $1,000. You know what I mean? To go to Silverstone for the weekend. Like, okay, so you don't go, so then you don't get this early experience. You don't maybe convert as a fan that you could have. Like, I think there is if they go the greedy route and just chase we can sell out at this price, then boom, they might make more short-term money. But I think long-term, if you want the sport to be big, and a lot of all of the social media work that F1's done, putting into their own YouTube channel and all that, that's not necessarily driving a profit. Them making like TikToks and Instagram reels and YouTube highlights, that's not necessarily driving a profit. It's not driving a profit for sure. The amount of resources that goes into it, but it's building that fan base that will, can convert as an F1 fan at 10, 11, 12 years old, watching it on YouTube and still be watching and supporting when they're in their 60s, 70s, 80s.
Yeah, that's it, right? And you have to, the fact that it's behind a paywall as well. I got into it on my own because I was able to flick through the channels, and it was on BBC One. Fuck me, I'm old. It was on BBC One at the time. And I got into it all on my own. Like, I didn't know my parents. And it's harder to do that. Although social media does make it, the internet does make it easy once you get to a certain age to figure out, okay, I can download music here, I can go watch races here. I know, whatever. I'm sure kids are a lot more tech savvy than I was at 10 years old. But I think, it's important to keep these barriers to entry as low as possible. And I think the joy of, I've never been to an F1 race, and I'm planning on going. We're going to go to Austin and we're going to go to Vegas, but it would be good if the barriers to entry for F1 weren't so high, for that physical experience, because that's the ultimate experience of it at the end of the day, and you don't want to price people out of even thinking they can afford to go to that, because it does harm the products. But also, they're not going to give a fuck if they keep selling out.
And that's the thing. Like I could see it going that way, and I think it would be short sighted because I think they'd be missing the bigger picture of actually the long term harm. That it's difficult because this is like I think for example, I love football, right? I love the sport, and the Premier League is the institution that's grown and in England, and you've got the leagues below it, and it's like we're so reliant on this because I don't just love Formula One. I love motorsport, generally speaking, right? But my interest has gravitated, particularly in the last kind of 10 years or so, particularly to hone into Formula One. Yeah. And if there's a few bad decisions at the top, they could like really fuck up the product. I guess that's the thing. And we almost have to, we owe it to ourselves to kind of put our thoughts and opinions out there as fans, because it's in the hands of a few people who could fundamentally change the sport. Like whether it's Premier League or Bundesliga or La Liga, they're all playing the same game of football with the same rules. Like different motorsports have totally different rules, and we've kind of focused down on this rule set that is this Formula One, the one formula, and it's like if they fuck it up, then it's like, oh fuck. Like it does feel a bit more precarious as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. And look, you're looking at there has been a trickle down effect of people getting into Formula One, then getting into like IndyCar, getting into WEC, NASCAR, even MotoGP. Like people are getting that bug for racing, and if they're not getting that, and then they're finding out, oh, it's much cheaper for me to go to an IndyCar race. It's much cheaper for me to go to the Le Mans 24, and it's an incredible experience, and it's like so much cheaper. There will be if they don't keep, I guess if they do just target the upper echelon of people who want to go because they can afford it. If the product ever does, like you say, stop to be worth that, then it's going to be hard to get those fans back who've already gone.
Good point. Yeah, it's a really good point. Really good point.
So speaking of money, I wanted to have a chat about, I wanted to bring something on here that we always kind of like back and forth about, which is the business of the content creator, I guess. And especially the F1 content creator. And I guess there's people who might be watching this who are wanting to start their own platform of whatever sort. It might be Formula One, it might be fucking fashion, it might be fucking cooking, it might be anything, right? And I guess someone asked me this the other day, and I was like unsure, but I have an opinion. Do you think it's easier to start an F1 platform now than it was when you started yours? And if you were to start your F1 platform now, would you do it in the same way?
That's a good question. Do I think... I think that now there is a bit more of a... Okay, so when I started, middle of 2019, when I started making F1 videos, before I started, I wasn't consuming F1 content really on YouTube, outside of the official sources. I'd watch the highlights of practice sessions and all that because I didn't always have Sky Sports or whatever. I didn't really follow much, but my understanding, once I did get into the content creation space in the middle of 2019, is that there weren't a lot of other people doing it. I took my approach where I used to do football videos, and I just was like, I just want to talk about F1 in the same way I talk about football. So I just and that was a more tried and tested in 2019. There were a lot of very established football creators. So I think that, I guess maybe now it's a bit easier to know what can work, because I think there is, whether it's what you guys do, what I do, what Aldas, Chamber, Josh Revel, all these different creators, where we've all got our different kind of angle on the sport. But you look at, go to your channel, go to my channel, go to it, like look at the most successful videos for everyone and be like, okay, what, there's more, I guess, references to look at and be like, okay, cool. Well, where am I going to where's my lane going to be? Because
Yeah.
I think there's enough lanes for everyone because it's such a
Yeah.
like multifaceted sport, right? I think it's more that in that way specifically, I think it's easier now, but I think in every other way it's harder because there's a lot more people doing it. There's um there's there's not that same. It's like anything, early to market is always going to
Yeah.
help you. It's there's huge creators on YouTube who just
Mm.
sit and chat and get millions and millions of views
Yeah.
because but if some random did that, no one would watch, so
Yeah.
I think that overall I would say it's more difficult now. I reckon.
Yeah.
I reckon overall it's more of a challenge to again to monetize it and I guess
Mm.
careerify it. I know YouTube. This is the platform that I've chosen to kind of put my flag on. I've dabbled a little bit on short form, and I can't really speak too much for TikTok because it is very hardware wise. You don't really need the editing
Yeah.
software. You don't need all of that time to build out a 10, 15, 20-minute video. It's just there's more opportunities to gain that virality, but also just 1-2 viral TikToks is nowhere near enough to turn it into a career. You have to have that sustained, and I think that's a different kind of challenge. I think on YouTube. So yeah, harder
It
overall.
it is. Yeah. I think I was gonna say if I was gonna start, I think it's harder. If I was gonna start an F1 platform now, going off what you said, I would probably just start a TikTok. Anyone who ever asks me, I think because of who we are and how I am, or how I would like to make content. If anyone ever asks me, like, Nash, what's the best way to promote a podcast? How do I get my podcast to have more views? I'm like, you need to learn how to edit videos. Like, end of discussion. Like, if we had no video and we were just an audio, we wouldn't be where we are. And if we didn't have videos which were like kind of got shared quite a lot on Twitter at the right time, I think us coming in 2021 was just like obviously worked really well for us. Then I don't think we would have got to where we are today. And that's not saying that we're massive, but we're definitely in a position where opportunities come for us and we get that. But it's a saturated market, I would say, especially podcasting. I'm not saturated, but there's even a lot more now choice than when we started in 21. There's just so many more choices for F1 podcasts.
Yeah, it's just because I think the barrier to entry, particularly with a podcast, because it's the focus is getting the audio right. You don't even have to have video necessarily, and everyone's phones are so good now, and it's it's cheap as ever to pick up a little £10 microphone off of Amazon that does the job pretty well. And I guess as well, it's for me, I've been making videos since like 2016. It was my hobby. It was something I did in my spare time as, I want to talk about sport. I wanted to talk about West Ham. I wanted to talk about football. And then I did a bit of graphic design and I wanted to talk about graphic design and do graphic design. I did it because it was fun. You don't do something for like 4 years, like almost 5 years, with no return because I want it to be a career. It was something I enjoyed doing, and it's just just like if you love playing golf, and then all of a sudden you get signed to the PGA Tour, like you can earn money doing it. It's like it was my hobby, and then circumstances came together, and I was able to get the opportunities that I have, and the channel kind of took off, and that's great, right? But if I was doing it today, I guess the difference now is that people know that you can make a living off of content creation around F1 YouTube. So now all of a sudden the expectations maybe or around it are like, oh, how do I turn it into a career? Because I think the idea of turning your hobby and something you love into a career is obviously enticing to everyone. So yeah, I mean, out of a pure, I'm sure there's different career decisions. If I was like, right, today I'm blank slate and I need to make a professional F1 content creation channel, the decisions I'd make for that would be very different to if I wanted to make content today that I didn't have a channel, I would do exactly what I'm doing now because those are the kind of videos I like doing. It's just I'm just lucky. I'm so lucky that I can do the stuff I like doing, and it also makes me money. That's
Give you a little gunshot for that. That's awesome. I think it's the same. I think, but look, it's the same. Look, I made food content for. Fuck me. I made food content for like 6 years before I even started Munch Club. Before I even started Quickstop F1, I was doing food content, and I was like, that was what I always thought was like, that's gonna be like the career I have. I'm gonna do food content. The F1 stuff started as a passion project. I just like had all these opinions, and I was like you. I never watched F1 content, like ever. Never, ever watched F1 content. And now, and then I just was like, I want to start because I just want to talk about these things. And I think the best things do start from that. Like, I'm just doing this because I love doing it. I love talking about it. And you have to love making content, because I always say it. If you don't love making content, this shit will burn you out, bro. like it is fun, but you know, the editing. I mean, I'm sure there's been times when you've done an edit, you've realized something's wrong in export, your computer crashes. We've had recordings of whole podcasts go missing. I've had to come back on at like midnight and record a whole fucking podcast. There's so many things that could go wrong.
It's so true.
It's true. It's not for the faint of heart, and I think people might see, like, you know, obviously in front of camera, you know, you can that's all fun and games, and then, you know, whatever opportunities you get, and then, you know, they just think everything's hunky dory. I think people do think. You know, you look at what people say about influencers at the F1, and people giving certain content creators a chance at the F1 or whatever, but it's not an easy job. I think people just think, oh, you just have a camera and you're just like, and then that's it.
I think yeah.
Although obviously there are harder jobs. I'm not going to say
of course,
like Joanne, but it's not a simple job to do. I think is all I would say.
I think it's the kind of job that you get out what you put in, and I think, you know, you can be lazy with it, and, you know, if you build up to a stage where you've got an audience and then you start to be lazy, I think, you know, the audience will probably catch on, and it will reflect in the products that you're making. If you do a shit job in any job, if you're, I don't know, a welder and you do shit welds, you're not gonna keep your job for very long. And, you know, you have to kind of set. Yeah, I think that's the thing I find challenging, I suppose, because I try and set a higher standard of myself, but also I'm definitely not a perfectionist to a T, because I think that can be a really dangerous kind of. You get caught in a loop of like, it's never perfect and never satisfied. But I'm very good at that now. Like, I'll make a video, I'll spend, you know, 20, 30 hours is typically what I'm spending now per video, like in total. And I'll put it out there, and I'll spend the, you know, couple of hours after the video's released kind of replying to all of the top comments. Yeah. And then it's kind of gone.
Done.
And and all that work is just, it's gone. And then on to the next.
It's literally just
that
like
can be
another.
Difficult.
It is difficult. It can be, because especially if you're like, oh, this one's gonna bang, this one's gonna do so well, and then it's not. And I think I'm the same. Like, you know, you work on the thing. Obviously, I've get a video out, then I'm into like short form mode. Right, I've got to make clips out of it, and you spend time doing clips and this and that, and then you've just got to just churn out this content. You can't have too much of an emotional attachment to a video, because you've just got to move on to the next one. But you'll see the results and you'll see the comments, and it could be bad. I wanted to ask, in terms of like business, what's the future for, I guess, content creators in like business wise? Like, how do you see the monetization of, let's say, F1 content creators in the future?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, when I think about the different ways of monetizing yourself and how you're able to actually quite efficiently, if you've got a small invested audience, and I think you're a prime example, right? Because you know, you've not got this massive hundreds of thousands of views on every podcast, right? But you've got a really engaged, relatively to the space, smaller, but
Yeah.
like you don't need hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views to make it. If you can get the right people and it's 100, 200, 500, if you can get 1,000 people to give you a tenner a month, for example, on Patreon,
Yeah.
right, which is very, if you can give value, I think that's very conceivable for both of us, right?
Yeah.
You know, I think that's 120k a year. Like you
Yeah.
can, you don't need these huge numbers, and I think actually that's probably the more, and that's something I need to do more of. To be honest, I think I'm very reliant on my views and the
Yeah.
AdSense that pays, and the sponsorship that I put on my videos. I haven't really done much to, I've got a join on my YouTube, which is like £2 a month. I haven't
Yeah.
done a Patreon. I haven't done these things. And I feel like, because, people do want to support. And
Yeah.
I think people see value in, giving to an individual, and, whether it's Quick Stop, whether it's my channel, like, it's quite clear that it's just us doing our thing, right? And we're
Yeah.
individuals who, off our own backs, that we're putting ourselves into it. And you can carry, again, you look at Matt and Tom going from WTF1, and it's behind a brand and going it alone,
Yeah.
and everyone's gone with them. And, people like supporting other people. And I
Yeah.
think that's the real one. You look at so much like YouTube merchandise now, there's some mad stuff going about. I don't, the childish stuff that, what's it? Have you heard of, was it Jay and Ramel? Who,
No.
have you heard of them too?
No.
I'll have to send you a link. Their
Please
YouTube
do.
merch is, oh my goodness, it's unreal. They're YouTubers,
Nice.
and they've made this merchandise. I'll send you a link now.
I'm just on their Twitter now. Oh, this is nice.
It's called Childish. That's their, like,
Childish,
brand,
yeah.
right?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
gorgeous. Yeah.
The photography, it's so slick. And I mean, they've got a big audience now, right? But they
Yeah.
used to be YouTubers, not so much anymore. But they've just got this super engaged audience who will just buy everything. Like everything sells out straight away. And it's like, yeah, I think that direct monetization, I think that's the future. I think that's the way. I would like to become less reliant on sponsors and views on my channel. And I think that's something next year I want to make a conscious effort to do more of.
I think I think you're right, to be honest. Like, I think that's what, I think it's like, there's two worlds, isn't there? You've got basically three, I guess. You've got like the direct stuff. So like, obviously, like we would make money off of, AdSense, small amount on that, small amount on our podcast advertising. And we've got licensing deals. So we actually get a bit more than we used to on that, which is quite cool. And that for us, that's pretty much it. We're not even at the point now where we're probably big enough to have like read-ons or like brand sponsorships, but that's something we'll probably be looking to do again. Probably the inverse to you, like, or converse, whatever. Like we will probably look to like bring sponsors on board for stuff like that next year. But I think there's the perception I think there's still like an old school kind of mentality with advertisers that obviously the bigger the person they go with, the more views they got, then the more impactful that their product, the advert, will be. Whereas there's also theories that, if you were to go with someone who had a small targeted audience who do support everything they do, then the support that they'll give to your product, if you're aligned with them, could be just as great as going with a large thing. And I think those are the kind of attitudes which I'm definitely starting to see shift within the world of advertising and the external.
Yeah,
but I think if I was going to give any advice to someone, it would be just try and cultivate your own community. And I think what we've been able to do, is kind of show that, you can, when we did the live shows, it was just crazy seeing the length people came to come and support, and we're so grateful for it. So and that's where I see the future of F1. Kind of the bigger the space gets, I think the more the more money there is going to be for content creators, but you're going to have to show value in one way or the other. So if you either you can go the traditional route and really big numbers and whatever. Or I think the indie route is going to be the one.
Yeah,
For
it's
content
definitely, it's not a necessary component to have the huge numbers. I mean, I used to work at a PR agency. I was like graphic designer, right? But I in some of these planning meetings, and the amount of they would doing a social campaign, it was always more effective to target, say, I don't know, 10 influencers with 10,000 followers versus one with 100,000. And and then 100 with 1,000 followers would be even more effective. Like, so again, it's there is a lot to be said, like you say, for that reliable return audience. And I mean, I think I'm quite fortunate with my views from subscribers is quite high, and I can imagine like yours is like really high as well. And I think
really
that
high,
is such a that gives me, I think, a lot of gives me a degree of like security, because I know that there's people out there who do come back time and time again and do I don't always have to think, oh, what's going to get the most views, like, because you have to think about that stuff when you start relying on this to pay your mortgage and pay your bills. Of course you do. You have to think about that. But at the end of the day, is also like, I've got to where I am, you've got to where you are, by like speaking about the sport in the way that we want to, and some people are going to like it, some people aren't, and that's fine. There's something for everyone, it's all good.
Well, look, speaking of, I couldn't get you on. I couldn't get you on without having a quick chat. I don't even know how to frame this, to be honest, but okay. So I was recently on the Last Lap show.
You were
the
indeed.
the Australian Grand Prix.
Yes, it was, wasn't it?
So just so everyone knows, I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning, took my ass to Hackney in a fucking.
Oh God,
what
were we wearing, weren't we?
I was wearing a fucking Minion onesie.
That was it.
I was wearing a Minion onesie. To be fair, of my own accord.
I didn't extract that.
Of my own accord.
You, bro.
All on me. We get there. Niran is on one. Like,
mate.
Niran
is still frazzled. He's come straight from a night out. So
he's come straight from a night out. So he's a frazzled. So then there's a Disarano and Coke flowing at like 4 in the morning. We then watch the race. And let's just say the reaction to me, I was actually quite surprised. There was a really negative reaction to me being on the show, and to, I guess, what I was doing on the show. And to a point, there was some reaction which was around me being, I guess, annoying, me being crass, because I think I cheered when Alonso went out. Just general annoyance with me in general, which was bad enough. But then obviously there was, I think, some stuff that definitely creeped into racism, I guess. And I guess, thank you for the message that you sent after. Like, I really do appreciate that. I guess it must be, in this content creation space, how do you, I guess, like, as a content creator, and I guess as a platform, like, how do you try and counter stuff like that? Because I guess I was quite, because I remember I'd been on your podcast before, and I remember being really surprised that all of the comments were like quite nice, and I was like, and the thing is, just so you know, this isn't the first time we've gone on a platform and got racist abuse. We went on Red Flags podcast and had all manners of shit, like probably the worst abuse I've ever faced. So I guess is it a problem that you kind of see, kind of quite within F1, and I guess as a platform for yourself, like how do you counter stuff like that?
Yeah, obviously, like, you know what? It's really difficult to look. I'm interested in a solution there's no solution, unfortunately. Like, I'm interested in doing and that's why I reached out to you afterwards, because I was just like, I don't want to take it on my own back, especially, you know, as a white bloke who's never experienced, you know, that type of, you know, that type of harassment, that type of shit. Because you can, the thing is with the internet, right? If you try and approach situations like you would in real life, so say for example, you fuck up, you make a mistake, you say something you didn't want to say or whatever, and in real life, and you upset someone or whatever, in real life you're like, I'm sorry, this is what I meant. You explain yourself, and you know, you hope that they take it and you move on, you move through it. On the internet, when you address things, more often than not, addressing something makes it worse because you feed the people who you give it attention. This is why so often, you know, when people rightfully get cancelled online, they just go silent, and then they come back in 6 months' time. They don't address it, and they just carry on like nothing's happened. That is the strategy for dealing with whether you're being rightfully or wrongfully targeted. That is the strategy online. So yeah, like unfortunately, it's a byproduct of, you know, when you like with the last lap, you know, this is why I loved having you on so much. You know, it's just we're having a conversation, we're shooting the shit. It's that's how people consume the sport. Like, and when you've got 5 big 4K cameras on you, capturing every moment, capturing everything that's said and everything that's done, and people, you know, thousands of people around the world are watching it and all perceiving it from their own angle. Like, yeah, mate, it's a minefield, and that's why, it's again, I'm, you know, I acknowledge I've got my privileges, and it's not something I've had to, you know, when I'm called out for terrible opinions, it's because it's a terrible opinion. The worst I'll get is British bias. Like, I'll fucking live with that. Like, and that's why it's just, I guess that's why afterwards I was just like, I didn't know how to deal with it best. I just wanted to make sure like you were all right, and because you know, you can try and do what you think's the right thing to do, and then it ends up making the situation worse.
Yeah, I think like there's always an argument for either side, right? There's an argument that, you know, you know, there could have been something put out to be like, look, we don't agree with this, you know, this, that, and the other. In all honesty, like I didn't want that, and you know, just because, like I will admit, like it did hurt at first. Well, not hurt. It was annoying at first because you're just like fucking hell. Like, we were all frazzed. Like,
And we're having a great time. And
we were all having a great time. It was all a laugh. Like, and I thought, to be honest, I thought that the spirit of that would come through on screen. But I think I do think there's an element where, you know, where there are stereotypes and biases that kind of are involved within F1 of Hamilton fans, of black Hamilton fans. And look, that's fine. All the comments about, you know, there was some, I hate how funny some of the me comments were. Like, I think someone said that it sounded like I was gargling gravel. Someone said that I was, someone said I sounded like Boris Johnson. Someone like some of them I was like, but then, you know, a lot of it was kind of stemmed in the fact that I was, just this kind of, you know, a black guy supporting Lewis Hamilton, being loud and I guess in their eyes obnoxious, when it's just a passion for the sport. But for me, I just wanted, I think I would all, for me, just how I want to deal with things is on my own terms. But I guess there is something there for, you look under any post, Formula One post, you know, there's always, if it's about Lewis, there's always something in there. Like if you look at the stuff that we do that goes, if it goes like, you know, not even viral, but if it goes like semi-popular, if you go under the comments, there's something in there. If you go on, especially like TikTok, if I go in my approved fucking comments, done. Last week on Instagram, someone put a horrible picture reply on one of the videos of Tandy, who gets it a lot worse than me. So there is an inherent problem with F1. I think just when it all sports, the world, there's an inherent problem with racism, but it does feel like F1, I guess because we're in it, every day and we experience it, it does seem to have like a real problem with black people. I don't want to say black people, but like, yeah, it does have a problem with racism. It does have a problem with sexism as well,
Mm.
misogyny, and all of those things. Like it's just it's sad, right? Because we love the sport and we love everything, you know, about the sport. But I guess, you know, I guess even within the sport itself, there's, you know, there's certain issues within the sport itself, and I guess maybe that trickles down into the fans, and then obviously as independent content creators in one way or
Mm.
another, we kind of
And
yeah.
I think, you know, where F1 and the teams putting out, you know, there's a lot more initiatives and all of Lewis's work in like the Hamilton Commission and,
Yeah.
you know, the things that Mercedes have talked about doing, and, you know, racing pride and, you know, extending beyond
Yeah.
that into like LGBTQ and all that. Like I think as these initiatives grow, you will unfortunately get the people who are at the opposite end will scream and shout even louder. And yeah, I guess it's yeah, that's something that, like I say, it's a really difficult thing to, you know, with any kind of anything, any kind of stick, any kind
Yeah.
of things that you say, and how like the audience, you know, how you're putting your, it's impossible to know who's, you know, listening and watching at the other end of that
Yeah.
camera, right? And you know, it can take one person to say something, and how it kind of disproportionately, you know, you focus more on the negatives than positives. That's just kind of human nature, right? You get 100 great comments, you get one bad one, and that's kind of what you double down on. But like, what do you think is the, again, there's not a solution, right? But what is the best way, would you say, of handling these, particularly when it's, you know, because, you know, we're all allowed to have, you know, people have sporting disagreements. That's fine, right?
Yeah.
There is then a line that it passes. You know, how do because, you know, you see statements put, you know, what is actually going to make a tangible, because what do you think is the best
Yes.
solution?
It's hard, right? It's hard because you can't. Okay. So I think it starts with the person that, not you, but anyone, the person that you are, right? And then the content you put out. And then I guess, you know, if I think there's some channels which are a hotbed or safe space for people who think a certain way,
Hmm.
whether that's based on the driver they support, whether that's based on the team they support, whether that's based on nationalities, whatever. The content that gets put out, or the kind of things that get said on that channel or platform, would encourage it. You know what? I'll come out and say it. I felt like if you looked under like peak WTF1, if you looked under their comments, lovely guys, I'm sure, but I used to notice under their comments, you know, if they ever did say anything about Hamilton, some of the comments were just like horrible, like absolutely
Hmm.
horrible, and I verging on racism. So I'm not saying that's like a prime example. I'm sure it wasn't done on purpose on their part, but I do think some platforms encourage it. Now, when it does happen, there's no solution to. You're never going to stop people being cunts, respectfully. Like they're always going to be people who do that. There's going to be people who use racism as a tool to provoke,
Hmm.
as a tool to, you know, getting a reaction out of you. I think I've actually said now that I'm not going to react. So I've spent a long time reacting to people and kind of showing it more to highlight just how much we get it.
Hmm.
But I'm not reacting anymore to racist comments. Like I'm just gonna ignore them now because I I I don't think that it helps me, and I don't think I want to give attention to it. But as platforms,
Hmm.
I guess you just have a duty. I think platforms have a duty of care to the people that they have on, right? So I guess it's just one of those where, like, you know, and I guess, you know, and I educate to people and I educate to prospective people, and I guess you just want to make it clear whether it's a quip on broadcast or whether it's a statement or whatever. I guess there should be, maybe it should be just made clear, like, you know, we don't kind of stand for that, but also, you know, like you say, you don't want to fan the flames more. You don't want to give people attention. So it is this balancing act of wanting to show that you're a company or a platform that doesn't encourage these things, but also you don't want to feed into trolls. And I guess my response to it is probably different to what Tandy might do. What Tandy might do is very different to what you might do. What you might do is very different to what another black person or person of color would do, or another person of any of the kind of protected characteristics that we kind of have. So it's a tough one, and the thing is, we're all just figuring this out live,
Yeah.
live. There's no training manual for this. Like, no one told me that I would have to deal with this. Like when I started making content, and it's really hard to crystallize how I would want to act in certain situations, and it's like an evolving thing. But I think it always kind of starts with, who are you? What do you want to put out, and then go from there.
Yeah, because I mean, it's something which obviously, I've spoken on the past, and I'm not sure actually. I thought about it more since, and I don't really.
Yeah.
I almost know less where I sit on it. I talked about kind of drivers, and because a lot of the faceless Twitter accounts, they'll rep a driver, and then whenever their driver has they just send this torrent of abuse, and every single driver has, people running their face as their profile picture, sending horrific stuff on the internet. And part of me is like, well, if the drivers themselves acknowledged and said, you don't represent me, like, directly with, like, that's that fucked up, like, denounced it, I guess, publicly. Would that help? Would that, because that's the, I guess that's ultimately, it's like you can react, you can get that initial want to react, in a certain way, and again, if someone said that to you in the street, it's a totally different ball game, right? You've got the anonymity of social media, which gives people this disgusting, confidence to just say this horrific stuff, whether they mean it or not. Like, they say it and they put it out there, right? And like you say, whether it's just goading a reaction or whether it is genuine hatred, and it's just, I don't know now, because I'm just like, does that just, say, the abuse that, Lewis got from a subset of Max fans, in 2021, or the racist abuse that was getting chucked at him, like, would Max coming out, and would that actually stop it, or would that just goad the people on to be like, oh, if we do it again next time, then he's going to react again? Like, I don't know.
It's a tough one, isn't it? I would have liked it, but I mean, and to be fair, Max fans would say that they, when they were burning his merch or burning Mercedes merch, Max came out and did say, like, this is fucked. Like, I don't agree with this. But then also, I guess you'd have to say that, let's say post Silverstone, I think there was a big lack of understanding how Red Bull's reaction and the things they said and the kind of dog whistles that they said kind of encouraged the abuse of Lewis Scott. And I think it would take for drivers to do that. I think, look, if drivers, you'd think, like, from their point of view, if I step in once for this one person who's being abused or whatever, like, am I going to have to do it every single time? And, what's the effectiveness of that? I do get that. But also, I think on the other side, there's going to have to be like an admittance that the things that they do or say may have contributed to that. And then if you're doing that, are these drivers that self-aware? And if they are, do they even want to put that out there? And I'm not saying that every racist abuse is because of a driver and whatever they've done or said, but it's a tough one. I think I think what people would like from F1 drivers in general is for there to be more solidarity on things like this. Like it's crazy that, you know, maybe we're asking too much of these people. Who knows, right? Like, you know, how many, when you
Yeah,
think
maybe.
about it, how many footballers are active in philanthropy and social activism and so forth, like as a percentage? Basketball players, NFL players, but we're asking these 20 men. You know, we kind of bemoan the fact that Lewis is the only one that's asked about social issues. I think there's a reason for that, but you know, Seb was again a leader in environmental issues, LGBTQ plus issues. And then once he's gone, it's left like a bit of a chasm, which, you know, no one seems to want to fill. And I think that's where the drivers should be more proactive than reactive. And I think if drivers were more proactive and were contributing to the conversations around equality and around these things and normalizing it within their fan base, I think that would do more than statements after the fact.
Yeah, no, because I think that, you know, how, say, a public figure makes a
Yeah.
statement denouncing, like, is that going to stop these people?
No.
Like, it might make a few think twice, maybe, but is it actually what is actually going to make the difference? And you touched on it, is like actually fostering a community that won't allow that to fly, won't allow that shit to
Yeah.
fly. You know what I mean? Because, you know, we have a response. Like, even, you know, was it Austria last year where, you know, there was some pretty
Yeah.
sexist heckling, as far as I remember anyway, that was
Yeah.
going on. And like that shit gets stamped out when everyone around
Yeah.
calls it out and doesn't just sit by idly while it happens. I think, you know, we've seen that. Well, I was it a video at Monza? I seem to remember some, like, and there was, I think,
Like a
some
Red
kind
Bull
of,
fan getting harassed. No, was it? Yeah, was it a fan getting harassed by like a Ferrari fan?
I think
And they
so.
were like,
Yeah. And
yeah,
everyone
yeah,
else is just kind of sat around, just like not really doing. And, you know, it's uncomfortable to stand up for what's right, but I just think, you know, if we can instill that confidence, and that's just you know, we can talk about these things, but it's on kind of everyone. I think that's the only way it really does get, you know, pushed to a side, because then you, rather than, like you say, like fostering and enabling these kind of views to exist unchallenged, because unfortunately when we as the creators address it, then it's different to when the community, I guess, addresses it,
yeah,
I
exactly.
guess.
And I think we're looking for a brighter world with with, you know, with all the roses and everything in it. It
Because like
is fun.
you should be able to talk about, you know, the sport that you love in the way you love it, and not be subjected to the shit that
Yeah.
you were subjected to on that occasion and you've been subjected to on many other occasions, right? You should be able to, that is, you shouldn't have to deal with
No,
that, of course.
no, 100%. And I think, but like one, look, I get it. If people find me annoying, find us annoying, like that's absolutely fine. I think
You
I
can't be
think
like, there's something for
you're
everyone,
not gonna
but
be
there's,
like, yeah.
you know,
But
no,
what I won't have. So after, yeah,
no, I was just going to say that I think there is a degree, I think, of the problem, and not at the extremity when people jump into, you know, just like, just the racism, the bigotry, and all that, right? I just think there's a degree of, people can't stand, and I don't know whether it's just because of the echo chamber of Twitter, but it feels like people really struggle to hear opinions that they don't agree with, and just like
yeah,
processing it and trying to understand and just respectfully disagreeing. Like, I know,
yeah,
you know, there's
yeah,
social credit, isn't there, online, of like getting a
yeah,
quote tweet and ratioing them or whatever, right? But it's
yeah.
just, I personally, yeah, I'm not interested in all my listeners agreeing with everything that I think. I want to put my views and opinions out there. I love going through the comments because I love seeing what other people, and I don't want everyone to just do, because that's stupid. Like, you shouldn't agree with
Yeah,
everything
exactly.
that your favorite creator is saying. Like, you just take it with a bit of nuance. And if someone like you're not going to agree with every sporting opinion I have, vice versa, and that's fine. Because when do you agree? Like when you were down the pub with your mates talking about sport, what are you just sitting there agreeing with everything? Oh yeah, you're right, Nyasha. Yeah, oh yeah, that's a very good point, Tomo. Well done. Like, no, fuck off.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
No, it's true. And I think, there's definitely an element of that. I think F1 is crazy. F1 is like more tribal online than football, I would say. Like the extent.
Why do you think that is?
Oh, Tomo, I think that there are okay, how do I put this? I think there's a few reasons. I think one, we're tied to clubs from a nationalistic and even local kind of sense, right? You support your kind of localish team. I support my localish team. And I'm tied to an organization. I'm tied to an entity and everything that entity is. Whereas F1 have and also cultivated this sense of like cult-like fandom for individual people and drivers to the point where I think they're viewed almost as not deities, but these enhanced, super perfect people that could do no wrong, that are always wronged. And I think anyone who expresses an opinion against that, it's almost as if you are personally disrespecting that person. Sometimes I am. But I think
as we all do. As we all
do, right? So sometimes I do think that some of the pushback that you get as a content creator is because people have such deep feelings for this person, not even this team, really, unless you're a Ferrari fan. There's not that many. There's not another team that's really got... Even Mercedes fans, we're mostly either Lewis fans or we're George fans. Like, there's, right? So I think for me, that's where the problem lies. I do think there's been... And I think the influx of fans, of younger fans who absolutely support and rep these drivers to the hilt. I think that, again, the style and the way that things are online across the board now. Look, I'm on Black Twitter every fucking day. It's a fucking shithole over there. Like, it's the same thing. Arguments, one-upmanship, clout, this, that, and the other. Like, it's ridiculous. And I think it's just a reflection of that we see in F1, but it is intense. Like, it is, for example, the videos that I've done when I've got on Last Lap, like the Daniel Ricciardo videos, for example. If I say that on our channel, I don't think that does the numbers that it done in the retweets or whatever, right? But because we've got I think everyone on it, most people who watch the channel would have agreed with it and or would have seen it for the level of comedy that was involved in it, right? But I mean, I remember coming off air and reading the comments and being like, "You're going after his mental health." And I was just like, guys, like, we've got to relax here. Like, but we're used to seeing it in like football. You look at football content, those guys are going in. Like, if you go and watch Arsenal Fan TV, go and watch any fucking football like content which uses comedy and not just tactical analysis, which is like an entertainment first. They are going in on these players, bro.
Yeah.
And it's fine because everyone knows that there's a level of respect there. I'm here to make content, make it entertaining. Yeah. It's not a personal attack.
There's a different there's a different expectation. There's different assumptions. There's like it's hyperbole. That's kind
Yeah.
of,
Thank you. Yeah.
you know,
That's it.
I think that, and that's the difficulty, you know, that can be lost, and it's very difficult to perfectly articulate like yourself all of the time, especially on like a live stream, especially when
Yeah.
you're chatting and you know you're reading the room. You don't know who's on the other, like there's four of
Yeah.
us in the room chatting, right?
Yeah.
And there is a fifth person that could be anyone. Like we have
Yeah.
no idea who that person is. And then obviously, you know, that's when then that, you know, the intent and the way that you're talking about stuff gets lost, because you know we're all guilty of again it's sport. You know, you get, you know, when the ref
Yeah.
calls a bad decision in football, you're like, fuck off, ref. Like you're not
Yeah.
going to go into their like there's in that content, you in that context, you're gonna, that's just how we as sports fans articulate, and it's almost like it's the best thing about F1 is the humanity and the stories, but it
Yeah.
also can be the worst thing about F1. It kind of gives as much as it takes away,
Yeah.
because at the opposite extremes, it can be, you know, when you've got this real human story and it comes good, like it's amazing, and then when you've got this like you've said something and it's been, you know, taken in a way that you didn't even, you know, consider, and all
Yeah.
of a sudden it's like you can get dogpiled and it can feel horrible, right? Because even if, especially, I guess that is the biggest thing I still struggle with this, is the whole being, I never want to be misunderstood. Like, have a pop at me for what I believe in, fine.
Yeah.
But if it's not what I tried to articulate, it's not the intent behind my words. Your words are a vessel for your intent and feelings. It's just a way of communicating it. And it's like that's the thing that's really tough to deal with, I suppose.
It is. Oh, mate, it is. It's crazy that you just get kind of thick skin. It's like,
You have to.
press that mute button and like let it go. Like the people that go back and forth with people all day, and I've been guilty of it sometimes. Sometimes I've got time.
Yeah, I used to as well.
But you can't, because you'll never win. Like, you will never win an argument online. There will never be. And that's why I've just started saying, you know what, fair play, you have it, mate. Like, you win, enjoy that. Like, because I cannot, or have a nice day, lead with love, because there's never arguing to understand. It's just arguing to pile on. And I think, well, look, you know, some people will say, look at you, two fucking men arguing about how horrible life is for you. So you know what? Let me bring that to a close. But that has been a lovely conversation, and thank you for being so open and honest. I've kept you way past how much longer. How much I was.
I'm happy to be here, man.
But that was awesome. Let me give you a round of applause. Thank you so much, Tomo. Oh my god, what a lovely chat. Where can people find you online?
Tomo on YouTube, TOMMO, or Twomo, so Twitter Tomo together.
Is that what it is?
On Twitter. Yeah, no one knows. Everyone asks. I'm like, fuck's sake. It sounded clever to me when I came up with it. It's like Tumo? Tumo?
Yeah, I was like, I just thought it was like, like W for like, you know, like W, like your winner or whatever they.
Well, I mean that as well.
Like the kids say, like,
Womo.
Common Twomo win. I was like, Womo. I'm so old.
Womo moment. You're showing your age now, Nyasha.
So old.
Oh, mate, same. The greys are coming thick and fast.
Oh shit!
YouTube, Twitter, boom. Happy days. That's me.
Is your dog about?
He is. Do you want me to get him?
Yeah, let's get. We're gonna have a dog off. Hold on, let's go.
Oh, okay. He's right next to me. This is Minton. He's been sleeping. Look at how shiny.
I think I've woke Teddy up. Oh, we said that. Come on, Teddy. Someone said we should have a dog off.
Oh my god! Look at Teddy.
So I think Teddy was asleep as well. So what
breed is Teddy? Oh my god!
So we've been just telling everyone
beautiful.
He's a Pomeranian for ages, but he's actually a German Spitz.
Oh my god!
And he's very, very cuddly. But Minute, look at Minute, so tired. He's just yawning away.
He's knackered.
So That was for the people that were asking for the dog off between me and you. So
Oh,
enjoyed
Teddy's
that.
beautiful, man. Hey,
Yeah,
is
thank
he
you. So
struggling in this heat?
a little bit. So he likes to. Luckily, our garden's like quite shaded, so we
Oh,
can let
okay.
him out into the garden, and like the paving stones stay quite cool. There you go, baby. This paving stones stay quite cool, so he can just chill outside with the breeze and that. So he's all right, but
Beautiful.
on walks, he's definitely can't go walking too far in this heat. Bless him. But yeah, no, thank you
Bless.
for having the dog off with me.
There we go.
And thank you guys at home for sticking. If you got to this far, you must like us. So give us a like and a subscribe. Much appreciated to all of you guys. Oh, make sure you're giving us a 5-star review on Spotify. On the road to 500, we are at currently.
Ooh.
What are we doing? What are we doing? Where's my podcast? There it is. We are at internet. Why are you embarrassing me? Just load my page. We're at 496. So only 4 more of you need to like our podcast. And we've got an average rating of 4.6. I was like, every day I just expect us to get tanked by the haters, but they haven't.
Don't bait them.
Yeah,
Don't test them.
Please, guys, please, just let me have this one thing, please.
Nyasha, is this on YouTube as well, by the way?
This is on YouTube. Yeah, this is on YouTube.
If you've got this far, then put 496 in the comments. If you've got this far in the podcast, if you got to the end.
No, there you go. There you go. No, see, that's why you're the Don. That's why they pay you the big bucks. Guys, thank you so much for watching. We appreciate that. And remember, no matter what life throws at you, keep it on the black stuff. We'll see you. We've got a very special interview coming up for the race preview. And I'm sure we'll have some other bits and bobs as well as the race qualifying review as well at the weekend. So until next time, keep it on the black stuff. Take care. Goodbye. Look, mate, if you've got this far, clearly you like what we do. So here's a link to subscribe to the Quicks Up F1 family. Give that a click. And here's another link to some more cool on our channel. Sorry, cool stuff. And remember, no matter what happens, keep it on the black stuff. Click the stuff. Click the links. Click the links. Click the links. There. They're there.